community. We're excited this afternoon to be here and talk with you a little bit about our Canoe Creek project, which, with the board's permission, we're now calling Canoe Creek K-8 as we move forward in planning for the 2021 school year.
Did we actually have an option to name it?
If you want to. The community did ask that we keep Canoe Creek in it somewhere. It's been Canoe Creek Charter Academy. Our other K-8 schools have typically been Westside K-8, Celebration K-8. So that was our reason for bringing forward as a recommendation, but the board will consider it officially later, Canoe Creek K-8.
It's not official yet. Let me speak as the District 5 representative and where Canoe Creek K-8 is located. I support the name Canoe Creek K-8 as the residents did.
But we're not bringing forward a formal recommendation. I was just calling in now
change. No.
Ease of conversation.
I got it.
How about if I just say the Canoe Creek School? And then we can discuss it, okay?
You know.
As well as then points in a football field project overview and some discussion, and then our school and nutrition services projects update. Our facilities team is planning a very aggressive building program this summer to help update and upgrade facilities in our cafeterias across the district.
Do we have another project we can add to you, Mark? We'll come up with something. Mark and Mark.
We can talk
I don't
about
think they even find that funny.
No, they didn't. Neither one of them laughed.
They're panicking already. They're panicking already because of Dr. Pace's propensity to add a project at the last minute and say we have a very tight time schedule, kind of like the Canoe Creek School project. All right, and with that, I will turn it over to the team.
Good afternoon. Please allow me to introduce our friend here. We have Mr. Bob Gang with Greenberg Trard. He is our bond attorney, and he has been helping us tremendously as we work through this very aggressive timeline on the Canoe Creek School.
Yes.
So I wanted to hand out, we've done a little bit of pre-work.
Certainly.
Here, leave me
I can pass them down. Tim's not here, so.
So I know we mentioned at the last workshop when we talked about this school how we were going to fund it, and the total price tag of $37.4 million. Since we are obtaining existing student stations, we can't use our normal philosophy of purchasing new schools or building new schools 100% with impact fees.
Right.
So the exercise that we went through was to kind of break down the project as far as what's the existing school and renovations to the existing facilities versus the new growth portion, which is considered additional capacity. So this breakdown just shows us that we end up with 49% of the overall project that can be considered capacity enhancement and that we can use impact fees to fund. And then the remaining 51% or non-capacity portion of $19.1 million, that's where we need to talk about what other funding sources are available to us. So we do have the quarter penny. Remember the penny that we share with the county, that we participate in a quarter of that?
Yeah.
That's going to sunset in 2024. We have about $26 million sitting in the bank today that we have not yet assigned to any specific project. So the recommendation would be that we tap into that, and that will alleviate the need for us to do any kind of bond financing, to go out and issue debt in order to do this Canoe Creek project in this quick time frame.
And Sarah has worked with Bob Gang and the expertise that he brings to the table, as well as with the rest of our staff, just to kind of see what was the best recommendation, and certainly out of respect for the board's fiscal responsibility stance and the desire that we really don't want to take on new debt unless we absolutely have to, we feel like this would be a sound way to move forward.
Sure.
So then we would be fully funded without having to add anything else by using the quarter penny tax, correct?
Yes, so we would use impact fees for the $18.2 million in the capacity column, and we would use the quarter penny for the 19.1.
Sarah, is this setting us back on any other projects, pushing anything back a year, out a year,
No.
2 years?
So
We're good?
we had approved back in the fall, you all had approved us to allocate some of the quarter penny to ancillary facilities. And we had that slotted in for next fiscal year. So it would still allow us to stay on track with that.
Great.
Okay.
And then as far as impact fees, Another point is at our last business advisory board meeting, we did talk to those members about increasing our forecast for the current year. We're seeing impact fees continue to roll in. Our projection for this year was $50 million, which we're already close to hitting. So we did have a recommendation from our business advisory board to go ahead and increase this year's projection up to $70 million.
Okay.
And that'll be coming before you guys formally in the form of a budget amendment to the capital plan. But we do anticipate enough impact fees rolling in to not impact any other project. Be able to put those directly towards this.
Okay.
And I also want to thank our friends from CFM are here, and they've done a lot of number crunching for us as well to kind of get to this point. So even though we're all in agreement that we don't need to issue a debt at this point, I just did want to kind of give a shout out to our partners that have helped us work through all of this behind the scenes.
They really did explore
Thank
all
you,
the
guys.
options.
Thank
So
you.
do we have consensus from the board that this would be the way you would want to go? We thought so.
Yes.
So
Indeed.
again, this will be reflected in our next budget amendment process that'll come before the board for formal approval.
Perfect.
And if you flip to the other side, Mr. Gang's done an excellent job of helping us kind of lay out the timeline of all the steps that are going to need to happen to make sure we don't miss any required filing deadlines or legal documentation. If you want to talk through this.
This is there were two timelines that I did, and this one is one that.
This does include.
This
if we
does
were to-
include debt, right. So, but a lot of the milestones are the same whether you borrow or you don't borrow. You've already executed a purchase contract, I believe, and you have also the foundation has written a letter to Charter Schools USA informing them that as of June 30th, they will be canceling the management agreement because it's privately operated through a subsidiary of Charter Schools USA.
And Bob, on that point, I think the board needs to know, we are going to have to, our staff, Sarah, me, Bob, are going to have to make sure whatever the foundation has to do happens, because last week it was late in the evening when I got an email from the foundation saying, we have to have a letter out tomorrow canceling the agreement. Who's going to do it? So I wrote the letter and sent it to him, because just what we would have lost a lot of time if you said, well, you're supposed to do it. And Bob and I communicated about it, so I just want to emphasize, Bob, that we have to make sure if they have to do anything, we got to prepare it for them to do it, because they're not going to be in that role.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
part
I
of
don't
the
think they have an
handoff.
attorney on staff over there at
Yeah.
the Education Foundation.
Pardon me?
I don't think they have an attorney on staff at the
No.
Education Foundation.
No,
I think they do. They think now they do.
Yeah, I bet they do, Frank.
Well, it's part of the handoff process.
Their financing has a kind of a colorful history. They had issued bonds through the Osceola County Industrial Development Authority, which is a conduit issuer. It was back in like 2002, and then they got into some issues with the IRS over whether the bonds were still taxable or not. They refinanced it, and then the IDA doesn't exist anymore. Osceola County does its own conduit issuing, and so in 2016 they did a full refunding with bond insurance, and they have that, and that's not that long ago. The public offering, bond insurance. So now there's a provision in their bond documents that allows normally when you issue long term, the investors want protection. So there's a period of time when you can't just redeem them out. You can't refinance them out. And if you do, maybe there's a little penalty or premium to do it. But there's, in their financing, there's an extraordinary mandatory redemption at par in the event that the charter is going to be canceled. You can then redeem the bonds at par. The charter, by its terms, expires June 30th, 2021. But the school and the school district staff have agreed to call it quits at the end of this June. So that allows the foundation to do an extraordinary mandatory redemption at par. So that's economically, that's a good thing. So that's what we're going to line up to do. That you'll use your sales tax to pay off their bonds, and they have 2 series of bonds. They will give the proper notices, and they have these promissory notes through the county that are secure their bonds. So that's what we're going to pay off at the face amount on June 30th. The trustee for that bond issue has to notify the investors at least 30 days beforehand that their bonds are being called out at par. So that will take place in late May. Approximately the 29th is the last business day of May. So on or about that time, U.S. Bank will send out and publish a notice of redemption of those bonds on June 30th. So, there's a ground lease now between the school board, who owns the land, and the foundation. That ground lease will be canceled. The school, the charter school, has a leasehold mortgage that they've granted for the bondholders. That mortgage will be discharged because they're a 501c3 corporation, so they can grant a mortgage, whereas the school board could not and would not. So all those security documents will be canceled on June 30th, and then the land will be, the school board's free and clear of any encumbrance. The charter will terminate. Any filings will be terminated, and then they have a continuing disclosure obligation, just as you do in your public offerings. They have to publish a notice with the SEC, posted on the SEC website, that the bonds have been redeemed on June 30th. So that's it. It'll all be gone as of June 30th.
Any questions?
So really, I just wanted to, walk through the process, make sure that you understand that Mr. Young has been very instrumental as well as with PFM in coming to this point, and Frank and Sarah and the team are well on top of what has to happen between now and then to make sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's to bring this to fruition.
Bob, out of curiosity, Bob, if you miss a date, what's the ramification?
We don't miss dates.
No, I know we don't. I'm
Good
just
answer.
curious as to what happens if you do miss a date on one of these things.
Well, some of them have very little consequence.
Right.
The redemption notice, I mean, it's interesting that you brought that up. If I'm a bondholder and I'm expecting that I can't be called out yet, there's optional redemption doesn't kick in for another couple of years. I'm not going, and I have an above market return on my bond, I'm not going to be really happy that I'm being called out at par early. So I suppose if I didn't get the 30 days notice, I might think about, can I avoid getting
That's
called
why
out early?
when we talked, I want to trigger these
Yeah,
earlier
and
than later.
That's, we tee that up with U.S. Bank in advance, they do this all the time. They are trustees for literally thousands and thousands of bond issues, so it's very sort of automatic.
And I'll let you know that I did speak with Carrie Avery and Tommy Tompkins last week. Carrie's already reached out to U.S. Bank as their trustee and notified them verbally, and is starting to obtain some of the balances and information that we're going to need. So we'll continue to work closely together to make sure we get through all of these hurdles.
If there's nothing else, then I'll turn it over to Mr. Clinch and the facilities team.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah, Mr. Gang. Appreciate it. So we'll move into our next item, which is the Poinciana football field project overview. We were asked to defer the design for this project at the January 7th board meeting. We were asked to provide some additional background, so that's what we'll do now. Following the January 7th board meeting, myself, our Director of Design Construction, our Assistant Superintendent of Operations went to the site, met with the athletic director, who's in the audience today. Thank you for being here, so that we could see firsthand the recommendations that were being made by our civil designer. So we do have some drainage challenges. Another thing that you'll be hearing from the team is that in addition to the options that we've laid out here today, we would like to have a full cleaning and TVing of all the storm lines. So there are some challenges with the drainage as it relates to the storm system. And we would like to do that right away. Our maintenance department is going to help us with cleaning the lines, and we'll have the lines TV'd. So if there are any damaged lines, we would like to include those as part of this project so that we can address the project this summer. It's scheduled for a summer project in a holistic fashion. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Lockard, who will provide some background and the options that have been laid out for the project.
You can see from the Google Earth image on page 5, what we're proposing is doing an underdrain system, actually two lanes of underdrain system on each of the sidelines. You can't do it right down the middle because that's where your long jump and your pole vaulting amenities are. The current condition of those amenities is very, very poor. The pole vault pit is all cracked up. All of the curbs around the landing areas need to be redone completely. And from years and years since this track was done, they've been, because of the flooding, we've been getting silt, sand, and organics all over the field. Then when there's mowing, the seeds from the grass have gotten into those areas and have actually grown right through those amenities and done more damage to them. It's not the condition on the track itself. It's just the aprons and the amenities that we're seeing that in that situation.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, and it's nothing to do with Mr. Schwartz. He hadn't been there very long. These kind of things, these preventative maintenance things, and these kind of things, aren't they budgeted in the schools each year that the school and the principal is supposed to make these decisions to upkeep the field and upkeep the track and upkeep these things, or is it all district responsibility now?
I'll start by answering the first part of that, and I'll turn it over to the school if they'd like to add. But part of the challenge is we had a contracted services for the grounds. And our maintenance department and the school attempted to work with them. They were not performing to expectations. So last year, they were removed, and our maintenance department is now doing the grounds maintenance, including
and I'm fine with that. I
fields.
just wanted to make sure how all this was working, because I know we've talked about this in the past, that certain schools are investing the money. I mean, just the example, St. Cloud High School, Osceola High School are investing the money that they get in their budget to upkeep their field and do a good job. Some of them are, some of them aren't. I know Poinciana was on that list, a while back. I think we were talking about this 4 or 5 years ago. That did not do the right things for a while, and then we got into these situations.
Well, a couple of other challenges, and I'll just make the board aware of what is budgeted each year. As a part of the quarter penny, since the very beginning of its inception, each of the comprehensive high schools, other than Toho, right? Or do we give them to Toho too?
So athletics, we had actually increased to 15,000
Okay.
per comprehensive high school.
So 15,000 from our quarter penny sales tax has been going to the high schools specifically for capital improvements in the area of athletics. And that is something that started back when I was a principal, except at the time it was only $10,000. We've also encouraged and counted on schools to use facility use money and those types of things for other athletic capital enhancements. And other than the dollars that the district sets aside for a track renewal process each year and gym resurfacing, there isn't a committed portion of the district budget that goes toward athletic amenities. Instead, it's come up on a cyclical basis as an as-need basis
let me
or
ask
for
this
safety
question.
and security purposes.
Where's the $15,000 that Poinciana's got over the last 5 years? What projects have they done with that money?
We'll have to pull that data. I don't have it readily available. We can
I mean,
certainly,
I think I think that's kind of where we were headed at the last meeting. I mean, not to step on any other school board members' toes, but why we kind of delayed this is that we've had this conversation before. Now, look, I want all our high schools, and I want to help a high school from the district level if they're having issues. I'm certainly for getting this work done. Don't take that the wrong way. I just want to make sure that we reward the schools that are doing the right thing, and that we make sure the schools that aren't doing the right thing start doing the right thing. And I have full confidence that Mr. Torch will do that. I know he will.
Part of that goes back to, too, though, the size of the gate at some of our high schools
I
and
get that.
programs
Yep.
are much longer and much larger than some of the gate, the
I
ticket
remember when
receipts.
Gateway and Poinciana came into existence, all the booster money stayed at Osceola and St. Cloud. I mean, as a kid, I was growing up hearing these arguments of like, nobody is supporting the Gateway programs, nobody's supporting the Poinciana program. I mean, they were brand new schools, and rightly so. So I understand trying to help those out. But I want to make sure, and I'd like to know, if you have $15,000 a year that we're supposed to be fixing a long jump pit with, we're supposed to be, fixing some drainage with, what have we been doing with $15,000?
Well, just to back things up a little bit, what started this project to begin with was the issue of the drainage on the sidelines.
Yep.
There are times when they have to call, track meets and football games because they have to go to another location.
I was at Celebration when it rained 3 inches at halftime one time. And Celebration's built in a swamp. I get it, and where the school is 100%. So I get that part.
Well,
of
we
it.
actually did some preliminary geotech just on the sidelines and found out there's quite a bit of organics. So in a perfect world, when they built this originally, would have been great if they dug down another 5 to 10 feet and put some
They
suitable...
didn't demuck properly,
Yes.
is what you're saying. Yeah,
Yes.
I understand.
And I guess
And that's nothing that the school could have overcome with their,
Gotcha.
their
No, I
annual
get
monies.
that, and I guess where I'm coming from is, from my questions the other night, are Mr. Booth's on track of where they were, but two parts. One is, maybe I misunderstood what you were saying or didn't hear it properly. If we had a lawn service company in there that was tearing stuff up, I'm assuming in our contract, we have some indemnification against them. I guess I'm kind of over letting people just do whatever they want to us and ignoring it. My other concern is, and Poinciana's kind of stuck in it being the example as opposed to, I don't want to be here in 20 years and find out the school districts haven't spent $4 million to fix Toho High School football field because it's in a swamp. Surprise, surprise. I mean, we delayed openings and everything else to have it fixed. How do I know? I'm not confident we're fixing the new stuff to not have these same problems. I guess it's kind of where this whole thing's coming from for me. I'm not, Poinciana needs to be fixed, we're going to fix it. I'm not, ultimately, that's not my real question. How do I know that we just built a Harmony Middle School over there in St. Cloud that it's not going to sink? How do we know that Toho High School football field that we waited an extra year for is not going to be lower in the middle than it is on the sidelines in 2 years, and it's just going, don't worry about it, we'll just fix it. It's only $2 million.
Yeah.
That's really, I guess, where I'm.
And I think
I don't know who's in charge of that.
Well,
I mean, I know
I-
who ultimately is.
that would be me.
Right, but I'm assuming, I'd like somebody to give me some confidence. This isn't we know what caused this problem. It was a problem. It was done during construction 20 years ago, and this is what we do today that it won't happen again.
Absolutely.
Because it hasn't happened. I mean, St. Cloud, I think, is probably our oldest football field,
Probably, yeah.
and it's older than Kissimmee because Kissimmee was at
Spurs.
The
Spurs.
correct.
And I don't ever recall. I mean, when I was in high school, that was a really good field.
St.
I
Cloud
don't
field,
recall
St. Cloud's
that
field
it's ever
gets
had a
wet.
problem.
It's in a low-lying area too, but it's always held.
And there are
but
better-
I can
there's
tell
better
you
soils
that
there, too.
We've talked about. I know Mr. Adams and I have had these conversations about some schools take really good care of their stuff and some schools don't, and that's really is what concerning to me is. What I don't want to be sitting up here and going, "Wow, St. Cloud's doing a really good job," and Liberty is, and I'm not saying they're not. I'm just bringing them up. School B is not doing a good job. Let's say it that way. I want to make sure that we're taking what School A is doing, the good job, St. Cloud High School, let's say, and make sure that those practices are being put into use at other schools, and that $15,000 being spent on doing some maintenance, so we don't have to be here talking about $923,000.
Well, and I think what I would say to that is two-pronged. Number one, our facilities team is committed to holding our current contractors accountable for doing the right work and holding our civil design firms accountable for giving us the right design from the very beginning. And if it's not working, we're going to fix it before we turn over the field. Second, our maintenance team is taking over more and more of the maintenance of some of these fields. It does require special equipment. It requires a special knowledge and skills about how to do it. And so I think that will help in some regard. And then finally, I am confident that Mr. Schwartz will share with his peers as high school principals and our athletic director, and Mr. Adams will take that same message back to the ADs at our high schools, and Dr. Reinhardt and the team are going to help everybody understand the board's expectation is with these dollars that you're given every year, make sure you're taking care of your stuff. We can't always keep coming back in and replacing it.
Let
So
me add this-
I
let me
will
add
take
this
that
real quickly.
message to heart.
I think, and there's folks out there that are wanting to do it, and I'm not saying this is the norm, but then I know there's some people are wanting to do it, but they can't get their own lawnmower. They can't get a lawnmower to run. They got to wait from a battery for the district, and that takes a month when they can run down to Ace Hardware or Home Depot and buy one in 10 minutes. So I want to make sure that we're supporting those people as well. If their lawnmower ain't running and all it is a battery, get them the battery. If you can't get it today, send them to Home Depot and let them buy them themselves. Whatever. Because I'm hearing these stories as well. So I want to make sure that, or their mower doesn't run and it's going to take a year to replace. Well, we don't have that. They need it now. You know,
Yeah,
if
it
we're going to
doesn't
take
take
care of
long.
athletic facilities, you got to have it now, and you need it today.
In the summertime, the stuff goes to seed in about 5 days.
And I'm sorry, I wasn't reading that properly. So the $900,000 is for the synthetic field.
That's
you
an
know,
option that we included. We are not recommending
You can
that.
sell me on it if you can tell me that in 10 years it's going to pay for itself. If not, I'm probably going to be for resodding and going with the other.
I think the next page really sums everything up if you want to look there.
Well,
What the staff's recommendation
Can I
is.
actually, I apologize, I was gonna ask a question earlier.
Sure. We can go through all of it.
Yeah, and it's not really about this, it's more for my own knowledge, because I don't know that I fully understand what the responsibility of the schools are. So $15,000, do we have a list of items that they're supposed to be taking care of with that specific amount of money? Or is it, here's $15,000, Merry Christmas? What's their
I think we should have
guidelines?
different needs.
Merry Christmas.
We do allow them to individualize and decide what their needs are with those
Okay.
dollars. They're specifically for capital improvements for athletic amenities.
But
For
within
example,
that,
we don't have a specific list that says you will do this year and this next year and this next year.
Okay.
That's one of the things that we're working toward in terms of a cyclical maintenance cycle.
Right.
As a part of Goal 3. And we haven't included athletics in that, but we certainly can look at that with Mr. Shatera and Mr. Cavaney and Mr. Adams and the rest of the team.
Right, so-
I know when I was a high school principal, for example, we stockpiled some of those monies from year to year. And then through facilities use rental also added to that. And so the weight room at Poinciana High School and the baseball field at Poinciana High School were all done with those dollars that grew over time and that we augmented with facility use kinds of stuff. At that time, though, the track program, there was a championship track program. Mal Harpel ran track and cross country and was highly successful and held state meets there. But over time, with the poor soil conditions that we've identified under the field, and I'm assuming some erosion and just in general, a drain system that never worked as it was designed. We also did find an irrigation leak, correct?
That was actually Celebration.
That was
Oh, Celebration, sorry, it's all starting to run together. But
I get that.
those kinds of things that we found that have kind of got us to where we are today.
So, just a point for the record, the reason why I'm asking is because I do want to make sure that we are holding everybody accountable.
Yes,
But if
ma'am.
we're going to do that, then we have to give them guidelines. I don't know if that's the right thing to do. You guys are the experts in that, but if we're going to hold them accountable for keeping their fields looking, pristine or taking care of them, then we have to give, I feel, I am not an expert in this in any way, shape, or form, but I feel like we should at least give them some guidance as to how we expect these dollars to be spent. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I don't know how much time we have, so I may not even,
good.
We have plenty of
I
time.
know I ask a lot of questions.
We appreciate your questions.
How much of, I'm gonna open up a can of worms.
No, do it.
We talk a lot about, the fields sinking, for example, and whatnot. How do we know? Have we considered that some of this might just be environmental? And it's not, I just don't know how you prepare for something like that, for 20 years from now. I know we can prepare for a lot of it, thinking just based on the fact that we have built so many schools, but how do you prepare for environmental issues? I mean, is that something that we're talking about, considering, adding to the conversations about when we're building schools, where we're building them as well? I'm sure we are. It's just something I wanted to,
Right, well, it's no mystery, Point Siena is low-lying.
okay.
And the materials out there are highly organic.
Right.
That's a noun. If we would have wanted to avoid these type of issues, the soil should have been amended.
Okay.
30 years ago. When they
30
were in
years.
school.
Right. And I'll tell you,
No,
going,
and so I understand that. I'm not saying that we retroactively now go back and fix everything. I know we
Right.
can't.
Well, I
but
think that's-
obviously, clearly. I'm assuming that the conversation going forward when we're thinking about where we're going to build schools has to have this
Absolutely.
kind of environmental aspect that
right.
maybe we weren't thinking
We
about
do.
30
and
years
as we
ago.
go forward with new designs, where we have areas like that, then we will incorporate that into the designs.
If there are no gopher turtles on the property, we probably should not build a high school. It's a lot cheaper to remove.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a couple
gopher
of
tortoises.
questions, if you don't mind. Number one, I just want to make the statement that I actually am a big believer in the principal autonomy. So, I mean, I don't mind guidelines and talking about it at district level, but I want the athletic directors and the principals making the decisions on this $15,000. I don't want to have, obviously we don't, I was going to make an inappropriate joke right there. Obviously, I don't want them spending it on things they shouldn't, but I want them deciding what they want to do with it, and not the district.
They might be able to take that money and restripe, for example, but they're not going to be able to resurface
Yeah,
their track
correct.
with that money.
I guess
Just-
for me, the conversation, the reason why it sparked something is because we're saying you're going to be held accountable if we have to go back and fix something. But if we expected them to fix one thing and then it's something else that's not working, you know what I mean? It's like, how do we?
I do. Well, but I think it goes back to where probably I don't know. I'm not saying that the $15,000 they've gotten over the past 10 years wasn't spent. It was spent incorrectly. I'm just
We don't
saying.
allow that. I mean, there are
yeah,
measures
I
in
get
place to keep people making
Because
sure.
that goes into my next question was, is the long jump pad, is the discus pad, is the concrete apron and curbing, is it all original? Like it is 1990, I think that school opened in 95, 94, 93, something like that.
The underlayment is it has been resurfaced since then, and when they did the resurfacing the last time, they had actual depressions. It looked like it had been cratered all over, everywhere. All the surfaces had depressions in them, and they actually had to fill them in with a concrete slurry material. And they got everything.
So I mean, we're talking
back
about
up.
original structures that have been kind of with some
Yes,
half.
less than
I was going to
strike
say an
the,
inappropriate
surfacing.
word again with some half butted resurfacing done. That's basically what we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay,
And I have one more question when you're.
I'm done. That was it.
Because I just do want to make sure we've kind of talked about two different things on and on. One, original construction. Two, lack of maintenance. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much of this is original poor construction versus bad maintenance? In other words, is it 70% we started out bad, 30%? Or is it all
of
100%
the-
new? I'm just trying to figure out.
All the soil conditions are original construction.
And is
So
that the
that's
root
not
of
ma-
this
there's
whole
nothing you
problem?
can do about that through maintenance activities. The other issue is there has been quite a bit of erosion, especially along the visitors' bleachers. And that is really design. There should have been riprap put underneath those bleachers. Instead, it
This is
was,
visitor side?
yes.
We just
Point-
have to visit once in a
point
while.
taken,
All right.
but-
This is actually.
Oh, we gotta fix it in that game.
This is actually big bad.
Yes, you can see we've got a loss of material that's more than a foot, and it's undermined the track, which is why originally we were thinking we may have to replace the track itself, but now we're gonna injection grout underneath that and put a new apron that acts like a retaining wall that butts up all the way to the bleachers. Right now, there's a gap. You could actually, a runner, because there was a gap between the fence and the curb,
I
a
understand.
runner could actually go
No,
off
I
the
see-
side
I see
and
somebody break their leg
injure
there
themselves.
pretty
Right,
easily.
pretty easily.
Yeah.
I ran track and
May I just ask one other question, because this is absolutely not my area of strength or expertise whatsoever. But I remember having been a homeowner and having seen in the middle, when we first built the home, it was in the middle of a cow pasture. Then they added a post office, and they added Walmart, then they added a housing development. And over that course of time, our road deteriorated to the fact that you couldn't drive in, in what was originally a 5-acre high site.
That's right.
When Point Siena High School was first constructed, there was nothing. It was cow pastures with donkeys and cattle, period. That's it. It is now surrounded by homes. Across the road there are homes. There's tremendous growth in terms of the commercial piece just down the road. Doesn't that also impact the drainage and the way the soil works?
Yes.
Engineers
So-
will tell you no, but the answer is yes.
Engineers
this
tell
is
you have to maintain your own drainage
This is
on your own property.
before the, strict stormwater management requirements came into play. But I suspect what happened is as that development occurred around the school, it occurred at a higher elevation. So before that development, some of our storm was possibly sheet flowing off our site. Now it's 100% being contained on our site. And when you have development, you create more impervious area. There's less area that's percolating that stormwater.
No, it's
Not that that's pertinent.
no,
but I
it's
just-
true.
No,
The
no, no, I
FEMA
think
numbers.
it is.
You know,
I think
you
it is.
used to be able to build a house at whatever 63 feet. Now you have to build it at 65. So all the houses that were built at 63 are now surrounded by houses at 65. Where do you think the water goes? I mean, engineers
63.
love to tell you that it doesn't affect that. It absolutely does. And we also know that 5 inches of rain in February is a lot different than 5 inches of rain in June or July when you've already had 20 inches the week before. I mean, it's just a fact of life in saturated soil. So anyway,
Ricky,
I understand that.
We could blame it on the rain.
Yeah.
Chairman Soto, Mr. Weissayer did send a message that he would like for me to share with the rest of the board since he is tied up in Tallahassee. With your
Mr.
permission,
Chairman,
sir.
I'd say that we do not accept this letter.
Retract the message. Send back to
Okay, so this is dated today at 2:06. As you know, I'm working in Tallahassee this week and will not be able to attend our meeting this evening. In my absence, I would like for you to share with the school board my support for addressing the concerns discussed at Point Siena High School. I spent time walking the facilities with Mr. Schwartz, and it is evident we need to repair and replace this field, the drainage, and the surrounding elements. It is my understanding the scope of this project is in the $1.1 million range. As such, I request that the school board approve this item this evening.
All right.
Sincerely, Mr. Weissayer.
And you knew exactly that's where I was going.
And I've
Okay.
got one more comment about this
Yes, sir.
before I would consider approving this, I guess. And it doesn't have to be in a meeting, but I would like somebody to sit down with me and explain to me what we have done at Toho, where we know we've had dirt problems, to make sure we're not going to have $2 million issues in 10 years. And what plans do we have in place, be it as we do a new school going forward, that we will examine dirt with somebody who knows what they're looking at and what kind of soil needs to be in there, if it needs to be sand and not muck, which is probably what it needs to be. I don't want to do this over and over and over again. We just,
That's
doing the same thing and
excellent
expecting
point.
different results is not working.
As we go forward, I recommend that we do under drain systems at our athletic fields. If we're doing it while we're doing the original construction, we likely will not even see a blip on the radar screen. It's cheap insurance. In addition to the sheet flowing, the under drain system picks up subsurface water, and the under drain systems have inlets that occur every 20 to 40 feet that is picking up that surface water as well. The underdrain system is a socked pipe, so that water travels through the ground, hits the pipe. The sock pipe is connected to the storm system, to storm inlets and such.
And so Mr. Clinch and Mr. Lockard will follow up with you to schedule a meeting to talk specifically about Toho, but then also what our options moving forward. That's okay.
The
with
typical
you.
design
I mean,
for,
Magic Kingdom's built in the swamp, so it can be done and
It can be
survive.
done, yeah.
Other than what Mr. Schwartz seems to have done to this field, I guess some of it goes
Man.
back to the original. Okay.
So 1.1 does not include the field turf, it just includes everything there minus the synthetic turfs.
Correct, no synthetic turf. Or,
and we'd only be doing minimal repairs to the track because there are some damaged areas on the edges, and that was from the poor maintenance that we encountered.
as you saw in the
1.1
photos.
is just the cheapest to go, cheapest way to go.
Can you walk us through these?
Yeah, I'm not seeing the
I don't
total
see-
of 1.1.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Where's the rest of it?
Page 8.
No, I see 1.1's on there, but I'm not, unless I'm adding wrong.
I think we're talking the 259 plus 9.
Yeah, so we've got other soft costs included in there, the design.
Okay.
You know,
I'm saying that those four numbers don't add up.
correct.
Material
I just
testing,
broke out
audit.
the main
Yeah.
items, and because there was some interest in comparing it to what we did over at Celebration,
No, that's
and
fine.
it's
So these
completely
option 1,
different.
2, and 3 are not different options, they're different things to do.
Different
Except
things
for,
that need to
we're
be
gonna do all
done.
this
Correct.
except this.
So we're gonna
But
do
then there's
2
more costs that are combined with this to get to 1.1.
There are soft costs that are not
Yes,
included in
Yes,
those
there we
figures.
go.
Okay,
Yeah, and we put these
so this is 250.
roughly in how critical they were. The under drain, we have to fix the drainage on
This is
the
only
site.
half of it.
I know, there's another 400 and something thousand somewhere.
Yes, the track amenities pick up all the scouring, underneath the track surface, fixing the aprons, fixing all the.
So the 128,000 is not 128, it's a lot more.
It's 250.
or something. Is that what you're?
Right, that's just the direct cost, that's not the soft cost, that's not design, material testing, audit, all the other things that we have to do as part of a project.
And of course, we
They double
hope not to have to spend all that money.
Soft cost double the total cost of this? Is that something?
There's the 128, the 13, 259, and then I think this slide is probably better to look at.
There's 300 plus
390, there's
250.
Yeah, it's about
550.
540.
It's just 550.
We've only got 540 on here, yeah, 550, and you're saying 1.1 on the next page.
Completely double.
The hard cost is 813. We've got another.
And now what this is supposed to be, this is only for 550 or 40 or something. What am I,
Yeah, what are we missing?
what are we missing?
Is that in our
So there's all these different items here. Concrete
We've already
curbing.
got this on there. You got, the irrigation system on there? Yeah?
You gonna
What
replace
else
the
are we
irrigation?
missing? You got 720 here.
That's 724. That's the hard cost, along with the design. When you add the design cost into it.
300,000?
Well, we've got 240,000 in reserves that we hope to not have to cut.
Okay.
Once we dig into it, we don't know.
So you want an approval for 1.1, but you're going 224. Okay. All right. I see what's going on.
And that
In
is
case the
something that
field ends
board-
up being way worse underneath.
I'm much more comfortable giving a 10% reserve than I am a 50% reserve.
The higher reserve is because we don't have a design yet, so we haven't completed geotech.
We haven't done the geotech on the actual playing field. We've only done the geotech along the sidelines.
All right, I hear you. It'll be interesting to see when we tell them we got 1.1 where this thing comes in at pricing.
Yeah,
And-
I don't like. I know how engineers like when we approve 1.1, they eat that up. I'm with Clarence. I mean, I think. Would you feel comfortable maybe cutting that reserve number in half and then coming back to the board?
No, not
No?
before we
So
procure
it's not a
design.
reserve number, you're pretty sure
You're
it's
pretty
a
sure you're
real
gonna
number.
spend it.
Well, we hope that the reserve will reduce once we procure a design and we know exactly what we're moving
Is
forward
the
with.
concern really the soil and what we're gonna have to do to
The,
repair
the
this?
soil and the geotech, the extent of the design
You
as
think you
well.
might have to dig out the whole field, demuck, and then
That's what we're
put the sand
concerned
back
with.
on top and haul some more in?
Right.
And the excavation isn't the big expense. The new fill is the expense, because it needs to be clean sand.
Isn't it the drain line, we're talking about taking 3 feet of soil out?
We want to clean the entire storm system and TV it to see if we have any crushed pipes, roots
But
growing
if
through
we're mucked,
pipes.
if we're mucked along the sidelines, doesn't that mean the whole bottom of the field is mucked too? But so I mean, are we talking about
The visitor
excavating
side
the
is
whole
definitely
field?
worse than the home
We
side.
would attempt not to
So
do
it's
that.
probably graded out that way, so it's,
The underdrain system would be wrapped in stone and sand, so that, the intent would be for the sheet flow to go to the underdrain system
Okay.
and work its way off, to get to the storm system in that fashion.
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
I'll shut up.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We'll move to our last item, which is our school nutrition services project update. And Mark, would you like to take us through some of our projects
yes,
for the summer?
we've got an exciting spring and summer ahead of us.
I bet.
We're working very closely with SNS. In fact, we have weekly meetings with them, make sure that everything's on target. They've had some state money that they basically must use, so we're helping them take care of some long-standing issues that they've had. They've had access problems getting to all their sites. We're putting in 27 electronic gates, so that makes their access in and out when they have those early morning
So that's a
deliveries.
T, not a G, right there.
Yes.
We're not missing a U. We're changing the G to a T. Okay.
Gate.
I wonder electric gauge.
How
I
many
was trying
times
to
have I
figure out
seen
what
that?
kind of electric gauge.
Our apologies.
That's fine.
At 10 different schools, we're revitalizing the cafeteria space itself.
These are to
retheming-
make deliveries easier, correct?
Yes,
The
the
gates,
gates
yes.
are.
Is this money coming out of the food service?
Yes.
Yes.
This is all being funded through.
All of it is?
Yes.
Yes, all these projects.
I'm good.
Like, check, grant money.
The whole
We
purpose
put a
here,
kitchen on the edge of the field.
the whole purpose here is just to show that there's a lot of work going on this summer with SNS. The 4 kitchen projects are going to be the big challenge. This past year, even though we got off to a fairly early start, the projects bled into the school start, and that was a problem for our project. So we're trying to move that up even earlier this year. There's only so much work that you can do in a summer.
Is it easier to mess up the end of the year when everybody's kind of organized as opposed to the beginning of the year when it's?
It's preferred to have the disruption at the end of the year. But, they have box lunches, and at the first of the year, you want everything to be
Ready to go.
ready to go.
Feed students day one.
So that is our aim.
Day
So,
one's a lot harder to deal with.
yeah, so all of our substantial completion dates are July 15th. So we're going to gear up our workforces to do whatever is necessary to make sure that we're hitting those targets. And you can see these are kind of examples of what we've just recently done is that on the next page. And the bottom right, you can see there's extensive work. I mean, we demolish these kitchens down to their structural walls, basically. And even in some cases, we're moving some of those.
And saw cutting open slabs for new utilities.
So it's extensive work.
That
But
includes some new appliance.
Yes.
Yes.
You're probably not
New
putting
kitchen
back
equipment.
20-year-old refrigerators
New
back in
pot
there.
wash, new.
right, and that's a lot of that equipment is long lead, so that's why we do 2 separate GMPs. We do an early GMP 1 for the long lead equipment, and then a GMP 2 for the remainder of the project work.
And the longest lead are all of the serving line elements, which are kind of what's showcased in some of these pictures you can see with all the nice, graphics, the signs, and the actual reach-through serving lines themselves. Those can take 12 weeks because they have to be fabricated. And we're in line with a lot of other school districts that are. There's very few manufacturers that actually are in this niche that make these things. So there's a lot of competition.
So we're looking ahead. We believe we have a great plan for our school nutrition service projects for the summer. In fact, those projects have already started. The electric gate projects, we hope to have most of those completed prior to the summer. And everything, we're looking ahead and really planning these.
Yeah, the refresh project should be done at spring break. They're going to start some of them on rodeo day.
Cowboy hats on?
Absolutely.
And boots.
That really concludes the facilities portion of our workshop, Chairman Soto. You do have an option for additional board discussion on the agenda if there are topics that you'd like to discuss.
Gentlemen, when we talk about the legislative shortfalls, I think Sarah.
Whatever's your pleasure,
for us.
Mr. Thacker.
Sarah might have something prepared to go over with you in the event that we had more time for discussion.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I sent you that number.
Legislative portion. All right.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Boy.
So we have the initial proposals of the House and the Senate. The House did provide a full FEFP run so we can see all the detail of each categorical for Osceola specifically. We don't yet have that on the Senate's proposal, but I've
They do have the same thing though in the Senate.
they have not released the full run yet. So we just have the 3 pages that show the total funds for each district, but
Your
not the breakdown.
lobbyist is requesting that run from a couple of our folks in Tallahassee to see if we can get a copy and have a better idea of where we might be.
So, yeah, the real concerning thing that we wanted to bring to everybody's attention today, couple things. Number one, the FRS rate increase. Every year there's an actuarial study done on the Florida retirement system to determine what the rates need to be set at in order to keep that plan funded. And the percentage rates change each fiscal year. The legislature adopts a bill and it gets passed through to all of the FRS employers. The last couple of years, you may remember, our increase went up just over $1 million or so the last 2 years. So we've kind of had that built into our budget each year. And there's no specific funding for that. So to cover those increases does have to come out of our base funding. If you just look right here at line number 1, you'll see that it's about $4.2 million to hit our general fund. We expect our projection is going to be about $4.8 million, but some of our salaries are paid for out of grants and other funding sources. So we project about a $4.2 million hit in the general fund, which equates to $59 per student. And if you could just jump down to line 5 for a second, you'll see that the proposed increase in the base student allocation, which is what would have to fund that, in the House budget is $50, in the Senate budget it's $40.17. So just those two together is actually a concern statewide for all districts, that this is kind of a substantial increase to FRS this coming year that will have to be absorbed in our regular operational budgets.
What about the starting salary thing that they have proposed? How does that, I know it all goes to that. We're not expected to get that out of this $50 per base student.
No, that will be its own
So its own categorical?
That will be its own categorical. And I do have a footnote at the bottom about that, the very last line. The House currently has $650 million in for the teacher salary allocation categorical, and the Senate has $500 million. That will be a completely separate line item that will stand alone. So what I've tried to show here is just the pieces that are different. And then number 2, the district cost differential change. You probably remember there's been a lot of conversation about a study being done on the district cost differential. And we did have some concerns that when they reopened that whole calculation, there was the potential for that to continue to hurt us even further. So right now in the current year, again, footnote at the bottom, our district cost differential here in Osceola County is 0.9878. And we currently lose just over $4 million from that as compared to if there was no DCD. In the proposal for next year to adopt this new study, it would knock Osceola down to 0.9779, which is basically another 1% reduction. Now that gets applied to all of our base funding and all of our class size reduction funding, as well as a few of the other smaller categoricals. So the projection here is that that change of reducing Osceola's DCD by another 1% would knock our funding down another $3.3 million. So that's one thing that we really want to keep our eye on. That is, the proposal is also a 3-year phase-in. So I haven't dug into all the language to see if it's, a third, or what percentage of that would actually impact us in next year's budget compared to the following 2 years. But that is definitely a concern where we see, our funding continuing to decline.
We talked about, when Jim Campbell was here a while back, we looked at all the categoricals where we were lagging. Have we gone back and done any analysis on that? Because some of the things, the number of ESE kids and some of those did not make sense on why we would have far fewer ESE kids than Orange County and other counties.
Sarah and I have, Sarah and Scott and Jose went to a budget conference, best practices, and that was one of the areas that they also agreed that we should look. So we've been working with Linda Schroeder-King and her team on both staffing as well as then our matrices and how we're documenting the need for services that we're providing for kids to potentially increase funding. We've also been looking at Collier County because they're a best practice district with the way that they staff and fund their ESEs group, so trying to learn from them. We haven't found an easy answer yet.
A top 10
Yeah, they're
per
one of
student funding?
Yeah, they're one of the heaviest funded districts in
Yeah,
the state.
I mean, I'm after sitting through some of that with Jim Campbell, I have to tell you, I left that.
Hamilton?
Hamilton.
Campbell, what did I say? I meant
That's
Hamilton.
fine. I know, but I just wanted to make sure I was thinking about the same guy.
You are.
Okay.
Jim Campbell, I think, was our old mental health director here. Maybe I need to go see him. That was Dave Campbell. I don't know who I was thinking about. Jim Hamilton, when I left that meeting, I was really left with wondering if either other people are not reporting completely correctly or if we are not. And I'm not saying that we need to bend the rules, but I think some of those things that just intuitively, why would we have big differences from our neighbors to the north that we're off on? And quite frankly, Collier County. Some of the more affluent counties, it seems like there's some things we need more services and have more of. That's just my, I don't know.
I know our ESE department's continuing to dig into that. Jose and I have
And
done some analysis.
There were 4 or 5 of the
Yeah.
different things. I just haven't remembered that one. That's
We have
maybe the
also
worst
done
one.
some analysis on the staffing for ESE, and we haven't, to Dr. Faith's point, we haven't really found a quick solution. I think what it really comes down to in the ESE realm is we know we're underfunded. The ESE guarantee that's been in the FEFP formula for 20 years has not changed, and clearly the needs and the funding that it takes to serve these students
How are
continues
some
to
of these
grow.
other districts, what have they done to figure out how to get there? Because
They're doing the same thing. So you're having to supplement it out of operations,
but other,
and everyone is. I mean, honestly, as we've looked
but if
into what
they're
other
getting,
districts
but
are
if they're
doing.
getting far more per student to do it, and they may still not be getting enough. They may be getting $100 per student when it needs to be $150, but we're only getting $70. So what? I mean, I think this is certainly not my area, but I think I'm probably going to go down a path I should never go down. But being a county of lower income, are there certain things that are associated with lower incomes on some of these scales that would intuitively say we should be at or above some of the more affluent counties where needing more services? We know that we build apartment complexes for low income, they need more services. Are there some things like that that should be indicators? And I don't have any idea what they are, or if they are. And I'm telling you, somebody looks and said, we looked at that and it just didn't work out that way. That makes any sense at all.
We'll continue to try to look at it. We've just not found an easy solution, and we're working closely with Jim Hamilton as well, because I really trust the experience and expertise he brings to the table. The other big piece that Sarah has reflected on here is the proposed BSA increases. You know, the House does have a $50 proposed BSA increase, and the Senate's is $40 basically in change.
So it's going to be 45?
However, when you offset that against the other losses, under the House proposal, we would be at a deficit of $8.6 million, and under the Senate, a proposal, a deficit of $1 million, as the budgets currently stand.
And the House does have the elimination of the funding compression, which was the other big
We already
piece.
talked about that, yeah.
We've got to get this to our, and I'm assuming our lobbyists, this is about as concise and simple
I
as
sent this
anything
to Mike
I've
this
seen.
afternoon, and as well as Jim to review.
It needs to go to our local delegation, and it needs to go to some of the friends that we have outside of our delegation. And I'm sure Mike will do that. I'd like to know that he is doing that.
And I did attach for you, I know a
This is
lot of
pretty
times
simple.
we like to see how it impacts other districts. So don't have the impact of these proposals on the other districts, but the second page is the district cost differential, and this was part of the House run. So you can see, the first column on here is our current district cost differential. The last column is what it would change to, and that second to last column is the change, so you can see which districts are being impacted either positively or negatively.
We were hoping, quite frankly, that our neighboring districts like Polk County and Lake County would be negatively impacted by the proposed change to DCD. They're not.
How is
And that's the part we haven't yet figured out. We just got this information today. Now, Polk and Lake both do lose dollars for compression. Polk even a little bit more than we do. So we're hoping to be able to leverage some of that with our friends because of
Volusia, right?
Senator Stargell's influence in the Senate in particular.
Yeah.
But it
This
was a
shows
little
Polk being
bit.
break even, right?
Yeah, so
Right.
the next page is the funding compression.
This is
Oh,
this
okay,
is
the compression.
DCD,
Yeah.
and the next page.
So fortunately, we get it on both ends, right?
Right,
Yay.
and that's really the impact of this, is showing that
No,
those two double
I thought that this
whammy is really gonna hurt us.
This is an outstanding schedule. Sarah, whoever you did, whoever you did
Sarah
that.
did that.
It is easy. I mean, that smacks people in the head, and there's 6 lines on it.
And she's done all of that since we left State of Education this morning, so thank you, Sarah.
Should've left her alone.
Brilliant.
I was texting her for data.
Well, what do you need?
I waved over there, check your phone.
Well, we just wanted to share this information with you. Again, we are carrying it to Mr. Horner, and certainly we'll get it also to John Newstreet from the Chamber. He was interested. Sarah and John Boyd and Jose and the team are also working on an analysis of the current salary proposals from the Senate and the House to see how we would compare with those. It's a very complex
So this-
formula because of the language in that, but we'll try to keep you as informed with real numbers, real data as best we can.
It's interesting when I put these kind of just next to each other, how many of the same districts get hurt twice as opposed to.
Are they the blue ones?
I would like to know that, to be perfectly honest with you. Actually, there's some that are not, some that are
Yeah.
bright red.
But that's all that we had other than, and then it's
Dr.
for-
Pace, is it all right if we take care of some of the discussions that the school board attorney wants to?
It can save us a lot of time at going, and it'd be easier to do one topic right now.
Certainly.
All right.
Backlot apartments.
Oh, good.
I met, they wanted to have a phone call with what I understood was going to be the bankers and their lawyer. Got on the phone during the course of the call. What I learned was the people I were talking to, while they're reputable, are basically an entity that fines lenders. All right. So here's where we're at. It's 3 buildings that have been completed, 4.
This is the company that already has done several of these without asking.
This is the company that basically represented that they were renovating the hotel rooms when in fact they were converting to rental apartments and the county just was not paying attention. We are owed $2 million plus in impact fees. The county's owed about $200,000 or so. They have 2 buildings to go that the county is holding up, giving them the authority to complete them.
Until they pay these others?
Clearly, they offered to pay $200,000 up front, which I thought was interesting.
For the county?
Yeah, for the county.
But no, to the school board, but so what they proposed, as I mentioned to you last time, was that we would allow them to finish completing the other 2 units. There's roughly, last year there was about 57 students coming out of the apartments. This year we're in the mid-40s, right in there. We'd allow them to finish the last 2 buildings, and they would pay us the money in July when it's complete and the financing and everything. If you recall at the last meeting, I said to you, if I could assure that we were going to be secured for the payment, when one of them made the comment to me, well, if we don't pay you, you can just make us get all the families out of the apartments. That's not something I would ever put you in the
I don't really
position
want to be
of.
evicting families.
So here's what I'm asking
It's
for
not our
you.
role.
Rhonda and I met.
It's ridiculous to suggest that. It's
This-
ridiculous to
It
suggest
is.
something like
Okay.
that.
I don't
have-
wanna go-
I have a real problem with this group supporting this, I will tell you,
Yeah.
because I believe they knew exactly what they were doing on day one. And if you come to us honorably at the beginning, that's one thing, and when you try and pull something over, I don't.
Mr. Thacker, I think based upon,
That's right.
lack of a better word, investigating this, it is quite apparent to me in dealing with the planning staff, they knew. Right? Now, all of that said,
I spoke to their attorney 6-8 months
Right.
ago.
I don't want to expend the time, quite candidly, my time in Rhonda's anymore unless you're interested. If I can assure you that we're guaranteed payment, are you interested in a deal that would have you paid in July?
But this lets them
Payment of
continue the building.
It lets them continue the 2 buildings, and,
So how do we, the word guarantee is what's tripping me up here. What kind of, there are no
well,
guarantees.
therein lies.
Well, we didn't get our
Attorney
financing.
Well, guess
sorry.
what?
Attorney fee
They
provision.
sent me a letter, the loan company, and to me, it wasn't worth the paper. It was, subject to qualifying credit, yada, yada, all the difficult things. To
All the
me,
things that make it where
the
they don't
one
have to
thing I'm thinking about is saying to them, go buy a $2 million performance bond. And we do our end, and when you're done, you either give us the money or we can claim it against the bond and get it that way. But I don't even want to sit anymore and be working through this other than to say to you, if I could quickly conclude you're guaranteed to get the money, do I have your authority to keep working with them? It's frustrating.
Well, there's a little deeper issue here with that for me,
Yes.
if you're all right, Joe. And that is we're kind of, and you correct me if you think I'm wrong, by saying, yes, go ahead and keep doing that, and if you get the money, we'll let them go ahead. We are accepting the study as making these things, these hotel rooms, equivalent of townhouses. That, to me, is a pretty big decision, and we've not had a lot of discussion on it. And I'm not sure, me personally, that I understand that logic. I mean, I've read what's in the packet.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I completely buy that yet. I don't know that I don't either.
Right. Then I would recommend the following, because we wanted the consultants who came up with this to be here tonight. They are in Tampa, and I would tell you, then my recommendation would be continue this item.
Is that $10?
Yes,
Okay.
so that they can be here to effectively defend and explain what they have
That's up
said.
to the rest of the board. They may
No,
feel
but
different.
that's
They
why I
feel
looked at the
differently.
chairman and said, because all we're prepared to tell you at this point is this is what they have come up with.
Yeah, to me, these are two very different issues. I got to answer number one.
Right, and
answer number
they're
two.
basing
They're
it.
two separate
right.
projects.
Right. Well, there's two issues. One is the recalculation of the fees, and then the other one is how we're going to collect the fees.
They're, right.
To me,
They're-
I got to answer number
my-
one
my
before I can answer
understanding-
number two.
Mr. Thacker, was they based their townhome classification on the data generated by the backlot apartments.
Right.
Because it
That's
was the
the way-
first time
that's what I
we saw
read in
any.
the
Okay,
thing,
so,
and,
This is the change for the zero bedrooms.
yes.
You're talking about to the
yes,
townhome,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's
So,
to the townhome
am I
classification.
right? I guess what I'm asking is, members of the board, unless I can assure this district is guaranteed payment of this $2 million, we're not interested in any deal that puts this district at risk for this money.
And to go back to my scenario, the number one, we got to agree on the townhome classification. Number two, we
Right.
got to agree on they guarantee the payment.
Yeah.
If we skip number one and do number two, did we not essentially just approve number one?
Well, we're charging
That makes sense?
backlot, not the townhome rate. Go ahead.
That's the proposal, isn't it?
Two different ones.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, I told you I was confused.
So Sticks Company came in and asked to convert 2 hotels from hotels to multifamily apartments. Since the county withdrew their request in the fall, the zero-bedroom study. So since the county withdrew, Sticks came through and said, well, we want to do it. And they were going to resubmit the county study as their support. At the same time, Backlot just happens to be a totally different issue for us.
Yep.
Happens to be a company who took a motel on the west side of the county and converted it. So where the county study was all on census data in other counties, we now have a hotel that's been converted in the community that we can pull true data from. So based off of the four,
Which is the one that they did illegally.
which happens to be another company that we have a whole different issue with. So based off of the 4 buildings they've converted to date, 192 rooms at any one time, we're pulling 40 to 57 students out of it.
So a quarter.
So when Milligan and them run that through their formulas and everything, it coincides with the same generation rate that we charge for townhomes.
All right, so what is Backlot proposing that they owe us on? The old formula?
Oh, no, we were, because we haven't ruled on anything, we're billing them at the full multifamily
Okay.
rate,
All right,
which is
so
11 and
number
some
one and number
change.
two are not applicable
Correct.
to Backlot.
I see where
They're
you're going now.
applicable to-
We're
But
billing them at 11 and
Here
some
is
change.
where it is relevant. Number 2 is very much watching
Yeah,
number 1.
Number one, yeah.
Because
Yes.
if
Well,
the
I would think-
townhome, the 2 million figure changes,
And I would tell you that
but
number one.
prospectively.
I would tell you that, I would tell you that number one, Backlot Apartments,
Right.
is looking very carefully, because if we approve sticks at the
That's-
townhome rate, they're gonna say, oh, great, that reduces our
Mm-hmm.
impact fee.
But doesn't our ordinance say, well, no,
My
it
position
says
is-
it's the rate in effect at the time they pulled their permits.
know.
So Backlot pulled all their permits way before.
So they wouldn't even benefit from the.
To my
Well,
understanding,
but-
they
but
I
can't
will
go
share
back
with
and
you,
ask. I
when
mean, they
you're
can ask,
talking
but
to-
we
They're
don't have
gonna
the
use
grant.
that
You
$2
would
million
get some
for
lawyer
leverage.
to argue, let me go to court for you,
Yeah.
and say that it's not based upon data. I mean, it's not clean and easy.
Yeah.
No, they're gonna,
So-
that may be why they don't wanna pay us till June.
That is,
They're
that
hoping
is,
it'll be
they're-
So they can
Clarified.
leverage that $2 million since we don't have it.
What bothers me is
That's
that
always
if
something.
we, and I don't even like saying this in a public setting, but if we somehow show that there is no enforcement mechanism at all, then what makes anybody ever write an impact fee check going forward? I mean, if the county's not going to go evict these folks until they pay, or which we know is
Well,
not going to happen,
So
we went
the-
to
then
the
is there
county.
any
So
enforcement
what
mechanism at all?
How we got here, from what we can tell, is they went in under the premise that they were just refurbishing a hotel for a hotel, so the county was treating it as a renovation. Then I got on the county's radar, because I drove out to see what they were doing, and I
Thank
called
you.
them up and I
Thank you,
said,
Linda.
there's children coming out of there. And they're like, no, there's not. They sent their building official out there to confirm what I had seen. So then it was like, oh, this isn't a hotel refurbishment. This is hotel to residential.
But they still didn't stop, Rhonda. The county kept issuing stuff.
For one more building.
Until Dr. Pace had me go to Don Fisher and say,
Right.
Don, what is going? And when he got a hold of it,
Then the 4 buildings were held. So if they'd never went in saying they were a hotel refurbishment, the permits would have been pulled up front and the money always would have been collected. So that's kind of how they slid the 4 buildings
so
through.
I just curious, I mean, so you could just do this and nothing happens?
well,
I mean, it really,
the county has talked
so
about.
they had authorization. Maybe you didn't know it, maybe the school district, they had
had
authorization from the county. The
because
county knew
everybody
what was
thought it
going
was a
on.
To do
hotel
a
for a
refurbishment of a
hotel.
hotel room.
No. That's the rules. The county knew they were doing the renovations.
At some point, we made them aware, yes.
Yeah.
No, before.
No, in the beginning, I truly believe the county thought it was just a hotel conversion.
Okay, so then my question is, so.
I can't prove that, but I do think in the
So,
beginning, they
so
thought
Frank,
that's what it
then
was.
maybe you can tell me, so why is it that an organization couldn't just go ahead and do that? And is there any,
Yes.
so I could go ahead and say, I'm gonna do something, but then do something different, and that's okay?
Oh, to make sure it
Here-
doesn't happen again, that another hotel
Here
doesn't
is the-
just
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like,
claim to be an
it sounds like they got away with what they wanted to do.
Yeah,
Pretty-
here is the very simple solution to this. Oh, Mr. Thacker. And the simple solution is this. They put up a security that guarantees us payment, and if they don't, the county has to enforce their ordinance, file liens, don't let them add the next 2 buildings, and proceed accordingly. All right? There's no other way to deal with it. So therein lies the thing. So what you're seeing is one watching 2. All right, so we're just letting you know, we're trying to make sure we're staying ahead of it all, but it is clear that these single room things are going to generate students. Sure.
Well, we know that.
Right.
We always knew.
I mean, the original 0-bedroom study came out to what, Ronna?
Well, that was new construction,
The
but it
one
was
that the one that
500.
Ms. Caswell presented, what was the generation rate?
It was going to be $552. It
Okay,
was-
so officially, after we have 2 or 3 backlot, or what is it? What's
Four-
this,
four
0.25?
buildings.
So how many? So what's the 4,000?
Oh, $7,591.
So we get presented a number to us for 0-bedroom apartments, which is exactly what that is, right? It's a hotel reno, which makes a 0-bedroom apartment. Where instead of being a hotel, it's a living space. It's really a hotel, but it's officially a living space. So we got somebody telling us from data, I don't know where they got their
From
data,
census data in other counties.
that it's going to be $550, when in fact it's really a $7,000. And that actually really sticks in my craw. And I'm going to have a conversation with Don about that. I mean, somebody coming over here from the county commission office and representing to us $550, when in fact, when we actually have buildings on the ground, it's $7,000.
It was represented to Dr. Pace and I that Don was unaware of what Susan was doing, because after our meeting, Don directed her, and that got stopped.
If I
Thank
might
goodness.
just, if I may just one moment, and again, I trust this board and we'll support whatever decision that you make. But when I first came on board as the superintendent, there was a tremendous push from our local developers for a short-term rental reduction for impact fees, with the argument that they had a reduced number of impact on students, which would generate a reduced impact fee. They wanted me to change or bring forward to you a change in the rules, a change in the categories immediately, based on data from a very small number of projects that had been built in just the most recent years, or either projects built in other communities. And I recommended to you, and this board stood behind the fact that we would commit to engaging in a full impact study at board expense, $100,000 every 3 years, because we know that development changes so frequently in our area. But that we wouldn't consider a new category or a reduced fee without a full impact study, because it's a balloon. You poke one side, the other side has to go somewhere.
It's the same dollars.
And we also know that our local community, our generation rate for children, the way facilities and developments end up functioning is vastly different than what you see in Pinellas County or Collier County.
Orange County, our average age is
Miami-Dade.
almost 7 or 8 years lower
And
than
that's
Orange
been our
County.
commitment. You are on schedule, if we approve it in the next budget cycle, to engage in a full impact study next year, where you would have potentially more than one project from which to gather local data that shows how these projects are actually operating and functioning in terms of their impact on students in our community, in order to make an informed decision about what to do across all categories.
That's the position we've
That
had
is
all
just
along.
that would be my recommendation
agree.
to you,
And in
based
there-
on what we've done, based on what we've said, and the history that we have
Why
here.
we did not.
And I know I'm very hypersensitive to this, but when I read their backup, they pull out the thing about providing housing for police and service providers that work in Orlando.
That should triple
What-
the impact fee
that is-
right there.
That is what's in their documentation. And I know that's minor, but
It's not minor.
we're not
Well,
Orlando.
got one other quick issue.
I
You
have
a question?
questions.
Yes.
Yeah,
Go.
I've been trying to get to them for like 5 minutes. No,
Oh, sorry, Terry.
no, not at all. You guys are super, first of all, this is important for me because I need to like really understand like where
Good
we're coming
luck.
from.
You tell us when you got it.
Yes, I will write a full report.
You'll be the first one in.
Just because I'm looking at what's on our agenda today versus what's not on our agenda, we're talking about one thing that is on our agenda today. You are asking for action and direction today, correct?
There's a recommendation
Yes.
for denial tonight.
Okay, great. and that's not backlot. That's
That's the other.
Okay.
That's
So I just want
companies.
Great, perfect.
Sticks is the one who's providing housing for
14.02.
people working in Orlando.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to confirm that. The other thing with regards to backlog, you keep asking or looking for direction for a recommendation to accept based, okay.
If somebody handed me a guaranteed note from a bank that said in July,
But they don't have
you will
fun-
get the 2 million, I would tell you, let's take the deal. What I'm saying to you all is, we're not going to spend any more time on this unless somebody tenders that kind of a thing. Because these people have previously tried to lobby board members.
Right.
So I'm keeping you very informed that we are done spending time. Either give us a guarantee or we're not in agreement.
Do you have a time frame that you're going to give them? Because I feel like I've been discussing this since I've been on the board.
Yes, I'm going to tell them if by the end of the following week we don't have it, I'm going to ask the county to pursue action.
Yeah, like I need a specific date just because I feel like we've been talking about this for too long, and the longer
A
we
week from
spend,
Friday.
huh?
A week from this Friday, they're going to
Okay,
get.
I'm gonna hold you to that because I feel like at this
I'm
point
done
there's
with it.
several issues that we're just like, we'll talk about it, and then meanwhile people are building, additional buildings, and we're gonna be on the hook for that. So I'm gonna
Terry,
need a very specific
I'll
date.
tell you right now, I've been on this board for a little over 5 years now. Probably the most discussions that I've had online and offline
Yeah.
have been about, if you want a number one issue, have been about impact fees. Developers are really in tune with what we're doing, and I've had some very strong discussions with people. And I can tell you that, and I'll go back to what I just previously said, you have somebody, a county employee, committing and advocating for a lower impact fee for a development is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous that would even happen. But it does because I'm going to shut up. But it does. Look, and we have committed, just like Dr. Pace said, to going forward, and we've worked with the short-term rental people. When we did our new study, we saw the number was reduced, and we worked with them. We worked with our vacation villas because they're not producing any kids, and we're not going to allow, essentially we have it set up to not allow them to produce. But it goes on, and when you come back in next year and do it,
It'll be
all
more.
these folks are going to fill up this room and tell you how bad impact fees are, and you're going to go, hey, go tell the legislature to give us some money, we'll not do any impact fee.
Sure.
But guess what? They want to reduce our, this is operational, I know it's not capital, but still, they want to reduce by $12 million. So, anyway, just a little bit.
So what you're saying
gonna
is
continue to talk
expect
about
this
this.
every year. I get it.
No,
Got
not
it.
every year, once a month.
What you don't see
No,
is
sure.
the overwhelming majority of developers work out everything with us. It's just you continually get one or two that somehow are going to try and push the boundaries.
And just to put a little bow on this for
Yes.
my brain, additionally, the recommendation is that we reject the alternative, the recommendation
ma'am.
for
Frank, that
tonight.
is not the way it reads in the agenda.
Yeah, I do want to make sure that, because
We-
that's the reason why I have to call
We
you.
said because
I have to call, yeah.
the recommendation was to go with what the Tyndall Oliver was, and that they were generating, because the data supported the reduced. Because remember, it's an alternative fee calculation, so they're not asking for their own category, like a short-term rental. So basically, the data is there to support on the only
I don't know that
conversion
it's
to-
there because they've yet to give us plans to show what they're going to actually do.
Well,
right?
that was my
From
only
our-
other thing, is that Mr. Glass, we have asked
We
for
tabled
his-
this last meeting, right? We were
Yeah.
gonna talk, we were gonna vote on and decided to tabled it twice. The sticks one, not
Yeah.
just the back, I thought it was the back lot.
We don't have the plans showing what they're going to build.
So they would have to show they're building the exact product that Backlots did to be warranted that.
What I believe they'll do is they'll pay the impact fees under protest, and then they'll look to the court to give them relief.
The sticks or back lot?
Sticks.
Yeah, you know what? That might be the way to go.
Update what it says on the agenda.
I think it just, the board will need to consider whether or not they want to accept or
So they could
reject.
reject
this
So then we have to be
recommendation.
clear, obviously, when we're posing that, what is what, because that's the reason I have to have, I was like, this doesn't seem like
And
what
this,
you're
this
telling
one
me.
to me is the
Yeah.
step one and step two. Step one, we're approving changing it to the.
Well, you would only be approving this particular company's sticks.
Yeah, but you're not approving this one. Once you've approved this one.
Right, then somebody
you're-
else has to build the identical product to get the same.
There'll be 80 people in here building the identical product
Yeah.
that are not identical.
They,
Well, certainly the
And we
board
would have
has
to
every.
decide internally
You
how we're
could
going to
do
review
this,
those
guys,
drawings to
'cause
agree
it
they're
is a-
building the exact same product.
now being, from a pure lawyer standpoint,
Can't just
you hate
assume
dealing
they're
with
all
it when
doing
your
the
own
same thing. We have to
consultant
start
is recommending
It's
it,
the exact same
Yeah.
product.
right?
I think we.
What?
I think Dr. Pace mentioned we're gonna do a study next year.
Yes,
We're scheduled
yes.
to do a study next year.
What you may think about doing tonight is they sent in very late today their proposed presentation for tonight of why they're different, yet we haven't, et cetera, is let them make their presentation and then direct staff to investigate what was represented and come back to you.
We haven't
So that
seen it to verify.
I'm in a position to analyze the best way to deny it at that point.
So we're gonna table it again, is that
No.
what I just heard?
No. you're
I'm
gonna-
sorry.
You're going to hear them present what their case is
Tonight?
tonight, and then let Rhonda and I analyze it all and come back to the next meeting. Because we haven't seen what,
We would have to verify it's
Sure.
identical to what Backlots
Right.
has
Yeah,
already
you just got it.
done.
That's an easy one. I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Terry, I'm just strategically trying to be in the best position for us.
I just feel like we're just extending and extending these issues, you know what I mean? Like,
It keeps going and
I
going.
guess though,
My
Frank, one
kids
way to
used to
look
sing
at
this
it
song.
would
This is
be,
the song that never ends.
is
Have
if
you
they're
heard
saying.
that?
yeah, I grew up with that song.
Did you see
As,
that?
I mean, we're gonna extend it until next year when we suddenly have a new impact study, is that
coming from.
where we're
So then
going
you
with
could
this?
reach out
Guys,
to-
I don't want to tactically discuss here
Because it went through the
what
exact same data, so I'd have no
Yes.
we know,
statistics to.
but I can tell you,
so we could reject
tabling it enables us to put us in a better position. Based upon what we believe, Terry, we will hear tonight.
But we kind of got to get them out first.
And I'll explain it to you
Yeah.
after they say it. I'll tell you we're booked for the meeting. One last thing, guys. We have spent all our time focusing finance, legal, Dr. Pace, on making sure the health thing's going well. And we set aside, I did deliberately, the whole Gallagher commission issue. They, back in August, September, offered to settle it by giving us $100,000. They made roughly
Over 2 million.
over $2 million in commissions. If by consensus, I'd like to propose to them, we would split it 50-50. If that's not good enough, then I'd like to proceed to court and roll the dice.
Okay.
If that's all right with everybody.
So 50-50 is the offer, they accept, we're done, they do not accept, we let the court.
We'll let the court
Right.
decide. Dr. Pace and I reviewed that and said that would be fine at that point.
Okay.
But, by the way, if we go to court, it's not a 50-50. We
No,
want all of it at that
court.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's very
That's
public.
the
all right, thank you. Saved us a lot
Can I-
of time at the main meeting.
2 minutes just for something that's not even like related to anything other than team. Would we consider not having these printed all the time and maybe having them on a computer that we may already own?
What? No.
iPads.
I don't care if
That'd
you
be
do
printed.
that. I like it printed because I make notes so I can flip back and forth.
You know you can write notes in them?
I don't know how to do that.
No? Okay.
But I-
So Shoptown,
You can have
Shoptown.
them printed for you, or you can have them not
Not
printed.
for-
What does it matter if one of us doesn't
That's the
print it?
small change you want to make
You know
in this
what?
world.
Fine. May I request an
Hey,
iPad?
for that tree, it made the,
You
it
have
made
one
the
right
world
there.
of difference.
Yeah, can I
May save a
request that
branch.
that's
May
for
save a-
myself? I'll
may
be the
save a
only
branch,
one,
Mr.
but
We would be happy to
That
do
branch
that.
may be the one that you sit upon.
Thank
someday.
you.
Format you.
I know.
When you're
I know
ready
it's
for the
silly
bear.
to you. I know it's
For the
silly to
bear.
you. There's a lot of paper, and I know what happens to it when we're done.
What- we
That
can
is,
certainly
actually, that is me,
accommodate.
because the only way, I can't follow a thing on this screen, because
Oh, so
it's
this
easy,
was-
it's easy to lead me astray when page 4 doesn't match page 2. And I can't go back and look at page 2.
I understand what you mean.
So I have to see, if it was on my computer where I could do it myself, actually, I could do that, fine.
But it is here.
At the county.
I'll be happy though to accommodate the styles of the board, so we appreciate your desire to use your computer, and we'll have it ready.
Thank you.
Tommy's making a note.
Save that branch.
Stop it. Little changes are incremental.
Hey, but you know, there's a lot of people in North Florida and Alabama and Georgia grew up planting pine trees every day for this reason, so that you can have the paper.
I also want oxygen, you know, things like
And
that.
every time they cut one down, they plant
It's,
another.
Mr. Booth, can I
Yeah,
ask,
they plant 2 more.
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is that bull that your wife was with?
The bull my wife was with.
Oh boy!
No, on the Facebook, is that a family pet?
That one is, yeah, kind
Okay, because I looked at it, I said,
He's world
this is
famous.
a gargantuan
That's Licky
bull.
McLickers.
Boy, that's just going
That
down.
It's time, it's time.
That's what David Varney said on Fox 35 too. Was that your nickname in college, John? And the whole breed busted out. We all busted out. He was on the Fox 35.